mentioned about struggles. And I know that not just only two of you, but a lot of us, like we struggle with things and we try to figure it out ourselves. And then it takes so long. Like it took me almost a decade to figure out that I like tax. And then I was in college. I was so involved with all the accounting clubs and society. I didn't think that I wanted to be a CPA until I got my master's degree. And so like we need all these resources, and we need to at least like know where to find information to deal with our struggle. But talking about struggle, what struggles that you both went through?
I think for me, there was kind of two pivotal points in my accounting career. And one was when I decided to leave public accounting, which was a very hard decision. I struggled with it quite a bit, actually. When you're in public accounting, as you know, you have a clear path to success, to growth. The opportunity is there. So it's sort of unknown, right? To leave that and to go on to something else. But at that time, I just needed something different. I think, where we worked, we were running really lean at the time. I was out at clients by myself a lot. And I had a public client, and then I had, regular busy season clients. And then I was also on the nonprofit group also. So I had almost 2 busy seasons because their year end was often different. So Danielle and some of my peers were in the office in the summer doing employee benefit audits, having fun, and I was still out at clients. I think I just got a little burnt out, and I needed, to change it up. And I probably wasn't the best at communicating that. I was in terms of, my supervisors or managers. I wasn't I didn't communicate, I'm getting burnt out here, which now, as you go in your career, you learn to do some of those things. So I made the decision to leave. So that was probably one of the more challenging times in my career, but it worked out great. I found a great company that I'm still with, and I've had great opportunity there. So that's really worked out well.
But you're talking about burnout. Is that because you did not hit a boundary?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I didn't have necessarily. I have a tendency to do everything or try to do everything that's asked of me. So if someone says, "Oh, can you help with this? Do you want to do this? Can you help with this project? Can you do this job?" Yes. I, try to do everything I can. And, there's a lot of opportunity with that. But yeah, it's definitely about, creating boundaries and, pacing yourself.
Now, when you have more opportunities and then you have more experience in your work-life balance, if you could go back to that time, what could you have done?
I think I would have just, communicated and also said, okay, communicated more everything I had on my plate. I have these 3 things. I can't realistically get them all done at the same time. Help me reprioritize to something I need to go somewhere else. What I think that's something I wasn't doing. I was just sort of internalizing it and keeping all three things and trying to get them done this week instead of communicating and asking for help and support and asking, those above me to help me to prioritize. Maybe something could have waited till the next week. And I wasn't necessarily good about communicating that at that time.
I know 3 of us, we all work at CBIZ, and at CBIZ we have buddy systems, and we also have career advisor systems. Did you have those systems back that time?
We had career advisors, but that was the only kind of program at that time to kind of help guide you. So we did have career advisors. So I even with my career advisors, we had different touch points, but I probably didn't, communicate often enough to really, it was probably, the points were probably, too spread out. I probably didn't communicate often enough in between those touch points to, kind of the buildup of, it sort of is something that happens gradually over time, where it just becomes, you're tired, you're burnt out, you just can't keep going at your same pace.
So is that fair to say that for any young employees or like young CPAs right now listening to this podcast or watching this video, that if they have any buddy or career advisor system at their company, or we call supporting system at their company, they should communicate as soon as possible when they feel burnout and when they feel that they
Definitely.
need boundaries?
Yes, definitely. And I would even encourage people, their career advisor, if that's, or equivalent of that, if that's who they feel comfortable with. But even these seniors and managers, depending on your level, whoever's above you, that you're working with on that job, say, I'm also being asked to do this, or, just communicate, with the people you're working with directly on projects too.
Thank you. I think that's a very common challenge that a lot of us still facing with to avoid burning out or setting boundaries. Yes. How about Danielle? What was your challenge?
Oh, definitely. I think that I have had two big ones in my career. One when I was a new senior, and then one after I became a mom. But I think that it's important to know that this can happen to anyone at any point in their career. And so it's not like, oh, I figured it out and now I'm good. Like, you have to have guards up all the time, I think, because, you have a lot of roles in your life that you're balancing, and you got to maintain yourself to no, I only can do so much in a day, and that's all I can do, right? But I think that, especially for me, that has the personality of I want to do everything. I don't want to miss out. And I have FOMO in the ways of so many ways, right? And I have to really guard against accepting too much and being realistic. But I would say that I struggled, as an early senior, I struggled because I didn't have the project management tools to be successful yet developed. And I really struggled with over-promising and under-communicating. And I always felt that, how could anyone possibly not understand what I'm going through, right? Of course I have too much to, the communication thing, I didn't understand when people told me you need to communicate better. I just didn't understand. I'm like, how can you not understand? I was like, what am I not communicating? That's how lost I was. But really, no one can read your mind. They don't know all the things you're worried about. And I think it's hard as a senior to understand what the high level picture is. Even if you understand the industry that you're working in really well, if you're in public accounting or industry and you understand that business really well, it's hard to know what everybody's talking about, the different priorities, the pressures from clients. So I think it's just, I really struggled during that phase, and I struggled with burnout too. One of the things I did realize, though, that I had a ton of vacation that I just wasn't taking, that I felt very pressured to, I think not anybody directly, explicitly pressuring me, don't take vacation. I felt like, how could I possibly take it when I have all this going on? Which, as a manager now, I feel, looking at my baby self, my senior self, I'm like, take a vacation. Nothing is on fire here. We can't rearrange or talk about. Do the things that you need to take care of yourself, because it's accounting, right? We're dealing with stuff that happened in the past. Take a breath, do the best you can during the hours that you have, shut down for the night, and go about your real life. And, it's not school where you get a final exam and a break. this is going to keep going. So I think I didn't have those skills, and I really struggled, you know, until I could take some ownership of the process and realize like, no is okay to say. And yeah, I'm kind of rambling now at this point, but I think that was what I struggled with, is just understanding what was okay to say no to.
I think you brought up a really, really good point, is that over-promising and under-communicate. I think it's just like so common, because like for people who really care about the job, they really want to say, yes, right, I will get this done by this Thursday. But and then when we actually do the job and then things come up and then you cannot finish by Thursday, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like something bad going to be happen. But all I need to do is just, actually this thing happened, so I cannot deliver by this Thursday, but by this Friday, something like that. But it's just so difficult to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got that on all my evals for like years. Like it took me so long to figure it out. I mean, and I would try to implement stuff, right? And I just, until I could figure out how to concisely, clearly say, like not beat around the bush. I mean, I wish I could go back and look at some of my emails about reporting, and I'd probably be like, yeah, of course they didn't know what you were doing. You're like trying to like spin a story about why, well, and all of it's valid, right? I was really doing that. But the point is, I'm working on this first, then this, and then this. And until this gets finished, I'm not going to the second one, right? That's the reality. And so once I finally just was like, here's my list, this is the order I think I should be working on, and then give them updates. Hey, I'm still on number 1. It's really not hard to do. It's just hard to get it through our mind, I think. That's it. That's what I need to do. I mean, and then we have so much pressure because there's so many deadlines. There's so many asks. Like people are going to keep asking forever. Hey, do you have time for this? This is very important. And it's hard to learn how to say, well, I'm happy to do whatever tasks you want me to do, but this is the order I think. Is that okay with you? And some managers will be like, oh, well, you know, I need all of those done, right? And that's not helpful. So I think it's both ends, but mainly you can stick up for your own boundaries, and you have the power to be like, I understand all of them need to be done. I will do my best, but I'm starting with this first one, and I will check in with you as I go, right? And then your check-ins are, you know, I'm still working on number 1. This is where I think this is the method I'm doing. I'm still working on it. And if they want to reroute you, they can give you a call, but yeah, of course we want it all done. That's a given, but we just have to kind of keep on setting those boundaries. Just because you said it one time doesn't mean they're not going to continue to ask.
How often you check in with people about your progress? That's very difficult for me to decide how often I should check in with people, and especially when I move from audit to tax, because for audit we communicate so much. I cannot emphasize how much we communicate in audit, and I still feel. I think the first year when I moved to tax, and I just keep updating every 2 or 3 hours, to the point I feel like I don't think it's necessary for tax, because we have like individual like tax return. We finish from beginning to the end. Not like for audit, we have like a whole group working on each section of audit. And so to the point, I just tell myself that, okay, this is too much for me to keep updating people every 2 or 3 hours. Like, is this not audit? But and then sometimes I feel like I don't know if that's enough to check in to tell people my progress. So what is a good time you think is appropriate to check in with people?
I think you have a good point, Rosie. It depends on your team, and like, right, for tax, if your project's going to take you 20 hours, you know, you probably don't need to check in every 3, you know, great, I'm 10% done. You know, like I think audit, especially in the beginning of your career, you know, like maybe you have a budget of 2 hours for cash if you're on a small, you know, engagement or something, but that 2 hours encompasses like review notes and everything. So if you spend an hour and you've barely set up the work paper, you better be talking to someone, because you're that's just, I view the budget as a communication device, right? Like if my manager said, hey, I expect it to be 2 hours, including me reviewing and then giving you some feedback for you to incorporate, then by hour 1, I better be significantly done, right? And if I'm not, then I need to like ping them and ask them a question, because something, expectations versus reality, is not happening, right? There's some difference happening. And that, if we're talking an hour, that lends itself to you are communicating much more. Now, I think in reality, you might get it to a certain point, have a question, organize your questions, go to your next task, organize, and maybe you're only touching base with your senior once a day or something. But I think that because audit breaks up the project so small, you really have to clearly understand the expectation to be able to communicate appropriately. But if I think that if you know what your list is and you prioritize it, that's the best communication tool I think you have, because you can say, number 1, this is where I'm at. Is this where you expect me to be? You know, so I think it depends, but you know, more often early in your career, and as you get to know the projects, less often, because you're better at communicating. That's probably not the best answer people are looking for. There's no rule. I think just the more clear and concise you can be, the better it helps your team, because if you're long-winded like me and you're telling 5 stories, you know, it's hard to be like, wait, what does she actually need? But if you can be like, I'm really struggling on cash because the confirmations aren't reconciling, that's way easier for a senior to be like, okay, let me jump in and look at that. Then I spent an hour trying to tie this out and the GL was organized, but then I fixed it. And then, you know, like telling your whole story that you got there. That was me, by the way. So yeah, it depends. Is the tried and true answer.
Yeah, I agree. It depends, I think. And also just the point, I think earlier in your career, more often is better. I mean, you don't want to spin your wheels on things. You want to, you know, reach out before you're using the whole budget just because you get stuck on something. So especially, you know, in audit. So, but even in industry, I think that's, you know, the case where earlier in your career, you reach out more often, you have more touch points. In industry, it's cyclical. So, you know, different times of the month, you know, all levels, my team and I during month end, we talk all day long, you know, for about a week. And then other than that, our touch points are more spaced out. Most of my team I talk to and touch base with at least once a day, but you know, every once in a while I'll skip a day, just depending on who it is and, you know, what the workload is and what we're working on. But you know, really it just, but I think the main point is, you know, the more the better early in your career, I think I would say.